All right. I think I'm finally sort of figuring this crap out. Apparently, the one I set up to start at 9 o'clock, I need like the live streaming software, and I haven't downloaded any live stream software, so that's not going to work until I do that. But everyone seems to figure out where the hell I'm at when I'm doing it this way, so here we are. We'll give this a few minutes to fill up. While it's filling up, do a quick patch announcement. I feel like a broken record with these patch announcements, but when you guys are watching this later, you can see it. Anyway, somebody's right. Already throwing me a question. Got my new patches in. Got the grayscale and blue scale patches. Still $8 a piece. If you guys want one, just get a hold of me on the Facebook page, Gunfather Milsim, or send me an email at gunfathermilsim@gmail.com. You can Venmo me or PayPal me the money, and I'll give me your address, and I'll ship you a patch. If you're wondering, I make like $1 or less than $1 per one of these. It's not even really worth the trouble to go to the post office, but I'm doing it because I like to spread the channel. Obviously, maybe I'll get one of those at-home postal office label maker things, and that would probably make it more efficient. But the reason they cost so damn much to ship these things is because I made them of PVC, so they're kind of like a little thicker. And if I made them of vinyl, they'd been thin enough I could have shipped them in a normal envelope with one stamp. But because I made them thicker, because I wanted kind of a quality patch, it's technically a package, and therefore it cost me like, I don't know, $4 to ship these. So, but I think it's worth it because I would prefer having a good looking patch than a flimsy cheap one. The vinyl ones are shit. So, welcome to Gunfather Milsim live Q&A. Today I kind of want to focus the discussion on more airsoft game adminning, hosting games, putting on games, stuff like that, at least for a little while, and maybe open it up to other questions later. So, Santee Super Stunts, I promise we will get to your question later. Well, that's a loaded question too. That's a good one, actually. There's a lot to cover there. But so on the why am I talking about hosting games? I think that's pretty simple because if nobody's hosting games, we don't have a sport. You can only do so much, buying guns and shoot them in your backyard. Honestly, if no one hosts games for other people to attend, there is no airsoft, there is no sport, and there is no community. And in my local community, we've had times in the past where we had plenty of fields, and then for whatever reason, we just started losing the fields one by one until we had no fields. And the community, when there's no place to play, dries up real quick. I had to run out and find some new landowners that would let us play, and that's why I started hosting games. That was probably back in about 2012, 2013. And I hosted games for many, many years. I probably got out of hosting games in about 2017 was probably the last time I did it, because there were just other venues started hosting airsoft games, and I didn't have to do it anymore. And it's a lot of work, and I would rather just play. But in the time that I was hosting games, I learned quite a bit about it, and I think I was pretty good at putting on quality games, whether it be skirmishes or ops. I think I put on like 4 or 5 ops, and the biggest op we put on was a 2-day op, and it was like 150 players. So which is, in the grand scheme of things, not huge, but it was a pretty good op, in my opinion, and it went pretty smooth. And I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I was hoping to kind of spend some time and share some of that with everybody here. So first off, your main concern is where are you going to play? That's step one. You got to find a location. Without a location, you got nothing. And that's really the biggest hurdle to get over is where are you going to do this? You want to... How does one host a game somewhere like Miami where there's a lot of abandoned places or largely owned land? Now, listen up, and hopefully I can help you out with that. So, first thing you want to do is find a location. Okay. You got to find a landowner. You got to approach the landowner or property owner. Everything goes smoother when you have an in. Okay. When you have somebody who's already friends with that landowner, maybe it's their uncle, their dad, I don't know, a long friend, whatever. If you have an in with them and you're not just cold calling them, you'll have a lot more success. When you just cold call them, your chance of success is very low, especially with Airsoft, because they're going to think that there's a lot of liability risk on their part for letting you play there. And depending on where you're at, that may or may not be true. Where I live in Nebraska, there's this thing called Nebraska Recreational Liability Act, which basically means if you're doing something that's inherently dangerous on somebody's property, and you like driving a four-wheeler, for example, and you get hurt doing that dangerous activity, the landowner isn't liable for you getting hurt because you're the one that was doing the stupid activity. To be clear, this doesn't indemnify the landowner from like obvious issues on their property that would be dangerous. Like, let's say, I don't know, they had a bunch of bear traps that were set lying out. I know it's a stupid example, but it's one that comes to mind. If there was something like that people could get hurt on, they'd obviously be liable for something that would be overly obvious. But if they're just doing a regular activity, and our statute actually includes paintball, is what it says in the statute. It doesn't say Airsoft specifically, but it lists a lot of activities, and I would say or similar activities. So it would be covered under that. So I guess what I'm saying is be armed with the knowledge of your local laws and local ordinances regarding liability and recreational activity like that. So when the landowner is going to ask you, am I going to get sued? And that's the first thing you got to get, be ready to address is that question is, well, here's what's going on as far as lawsuits go or the possibility of lawsuits. The next thing you want to do is have a waiver of some kind. Okay. So understand that like in my state, the Recreational Liability Act, although that will protect the landowner, it does not protect me, the person who's putting on the game. Okay. The person who's hosting the game. And so the first thing I need to do is get a waiver. Does somebody signing a liability waiver keep them from being able to sue you? No. You can sue anybody for anything at any time. Okay. What it basically does, it's an acknowledgement by the player that they're engaging in a dangerous activity that can potentially cause injury if they don't follow your safety rules. That's it. It's the acknowledgement that this is dangerous. And so if they do get injured and they sue you later, they can't go in front of the judge and say, well, I didn't know I was going to get shot at by BBs. No, clearly you read the waiver, you signed the waiver, and here it is right here. You acknowledge that it's dangerous and you could get injured. So the big issue I always had with waivers was minors, because minors can't sign away their liability, and their parents will sue you if their parent, like they're going to always say, well, I didn't know little Timmy was playing Airsoft today here, and then he got hurt, and now I'm going to sue you because he got a tooth knocked out by a BB. And I always required, if you were under 18, either your parent had to be there, I had to meet your parent, and you would sign it, or you get it notarized at a bank and the notary would notarize your parent's signature. That was also acceptable. I got a lot of grief from younger players on it. I didn't give a shit. My lower limit for players was 14 years old. Then I changed it to 16. And near the end there, I only hosted games for 18 and older because I was tired of messing around with juveniles because they were just too much trouble. And I would rather have a game of 20 adults than a game of 40 people with a bunch of juveniles in there that I got to mess around with liability and crap. So I took my waiver. I had my attorney write up my waiver. I'm not baller. That's not why I have an attorney. I just happen to have one. You can have an attorney too. Just look one up in the phone book or befriend one or whatever. Legal fees are a little expensive. You could probably paying an attorney to write up a waiver for you would probably cost you $200 to $300. It's really not that expensive compared to the cost of potentially not having one. So, all that waiver liability stuff is cheap on the front end. It's a little bit of, it's one of those things that an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. You're just much better off getting ahead of it, meeting up with your attorney, getting a waiver. Once again, it won't stop you from getting sued, but it definitely puts the ball in the other person's court to prove that you screwed up. So just because you have a waiver doesn't mean that you as a game planner are indemnified from putting on a safe game and having a safe play environment. You can be grossly negligent in that duty and still get sued and still lose. Okay. And here's an example. If I give you this waiver and you read it and you acknowledge it, yeah, I'm going to engage in this dangerous sport because I can get hurt, getting hit by a BB or whatever. And then I, as a game organizer, do nothing to mitigate that danger, as in I don't have any requirements for safety goggles. I don't have a safety briefing. I don't do a chrono. I don't have admins on the field. Any number of things. I don't have set boundaries. Any of those things that if I don't do that and you get hurt, I can't just say, well, I signed a waiver. No, I didn't do my job. I didn't provide you with a safe play environment. Okay. And that is your number one goal as a game admin or a game organizer, is everyone's safety. Number two is fun. You want everybody to have fun, but number one, hands down, has got to be everyone's safety. It's got to be. Okay. So here's the one. That's the main issue I see a lot of young game organizers, is they just want to have fun and play airsoft with their friends. And I totally get that. But the issue they run into is they just get lax on all the safety rules. They have an ineffective or just short safety brief or no safety brief. They let people wear goggles that aren't shatterproof, ANSI rated. They don't do a chrono. They let their buddies run hot guns because they want to run hot guns. That's a huge one. And if that gets found out, people get hurt, it's on you, and you're going to get sued. And you deserve to get sued, honestly, because you're a fucking idiot. Additionally, the play area has to be safe, and the objectives have to be reasonably safe. I can't put a flag up on top of a cliff and say, hey, climb up that damn cliff and get that flag, even though if you there's no equipment there to protect you, and if you fall from that cliff, you'll clearly get injured. Just because you signed a waiver, that doesn't keep me from getting sued because I sent people up there. I said, oh yeah, go up that cliff. No, it's on you. And when we used to find a field, we'd get a good landowner and we would set it up to play. We'd walk that whole field looking for any safety issues. And sometimes we'd run into old barbed wire fences that had been knocked down and that were 4 inches off the ground and were a huge tripping hazard. And we'd go to the landowner and say, hey, you got this old barbed wire fence here. Do you mind if we remove it? They'd always let us. They just never got around to it, or they were lazy. We're making an improvement on their property. They go, oh, yeah, absolutely. Cut that out. Yeah, we bring the bolt cutters, we cut all the wire, and we would cut that wire fence out of there because it's on us. It's not on the landowner. It's on us. That'd be a safe environment. One more note on safety, or on your safety brief. If somebody shows up late to the game, if you're going to allow that and you're going to allow them to play, it's on you to make sure they get a safety brief, or send an admin over there to have a one-on-one safety brief with that player. Otherwise, they can say, well, I was never briefed on that, and I just did whatever I wanted, and then I hurt somebody, and it's on him. You have to protect yourself from liability. It just is what it is. It's also you have to make sure you're providing a safe environment for everyone. Kind of a quick note on landowners. The arrangement I always had. Sorry, I'm trying to read this stuff coming up here in the chat. I promise I'll get back to it. Part of the thing with landowners is that you got to give them something for their time. Okay. I generally, this was a couple of years ago, I would pay my landowners $5 a head. Okay. And I think I would charge $8 to play, and then the $5 would go to the landowner. And if I had I usually have 30 to 40 players, so he'd make $150 off his afternoon from his property. Most landowners, that's really not really worth the time. It's not that great, but it's something. You got to give them something, or there's no motivation for them to let you play there. Then on your side, if you take income, and here's something I did probably incorrectly. If you take income, then you're providing a service, and then you need insurance. Okay. You should probably have insurance anyway. You can call any insurance agent And if they don't know, they will connect you to somebody. All the big insurance companies have policies for airsoft events. It's common enough, airsoft or paintball events, that they have that policy. You're going to find it's pretty expensive for what you're doing. It'll be, I don't know, a couple $1,000 a year. And it's hard to do like one event, like just one weekend or just one day. They're going to want to do a whole policy. And it's kind of a lot of work. Here's how I avoided it, in my opinion, and I was probably wrong, but luckily I never got sued, is I wouldn't take income. I would just take, so the $3 I just put in a fund, and that fund would be in a separate bank account. And from that money, I would buy props and just crap for putting on games. And I never actually took any income from it. Kept it all separate from my regular, bank accounts. In my opinion, and in the opinion of my attorney, that added a layer of safety and security, because I was basically doing things nonprofit. Didn't mean I couldn't get sued, but the size of the games I was putting on and the size of our community at the time, I ended up not getting liability insurance. In retrospect, probably should have, but if I'd done that, we wouldn't have been playing. So it is what it is. A way around the liability insurance is to find a paintball field or some other place that already has insurance. I remember there was a kind of like a Christian camp, and they had a very sizable liability policy that we would operate under their liability policy when we played airsoft on their property. And that all worked out copacetic for everybody. That was the big 150-person op I put on. That was underneath that policy. And I wanted insurance on that one because it was just the biggest event I'd ever did. And I was it was just a lot of liabilities. It's not like a 30-person game playing in a little forest. The other thing is when you host a game, you have to have a sign-in sheet. Okay. Why? Because you got to know who's there. You got to know that they've signed a waiver, and you got to know what they paid. And then if they try to sue you later, somebody tries to say, hey, my little Timmy was there, you can get the sign-up sheet and go, no, he wasn't. You got to have some sort of accountability of who was and wasn't there, and who did and did not sign their waiver, and who was and was not present for the safety brief. Okay. I mean, this is basic stuff, but a lot of people get lazy on it, and they just want people to show up and play. And I get it. You just want to have fun with your friends. But when you're taking on the responsibility for everybody's safety, because you are the game organizer, you really got to take the time to do these steps correctly. And it's not that hard if you do it correctly and set the standard early. And the reason, once again, I'm bringing all this up is if nobody's putting on games, then we don't have a hobby. And paintball fields right now, a lot of them, I'm probably going to piss some people off. Paintball has been dying on the vine for like 15 years. Okay. It's just slowly dying. It's just too expensive to play, and it's going away. Airsoft is just kind of hanging on, was big, growing, and it got to 2012, kind of peaked, went down, and now it's just kind of hanging on, just kind of steady, which is fine. The reason paintball places don't want airsoft players to play there is because paintball places make most of their money off field paint, which is field paint's ridiculously overpriced, but all paintball is overpriced. It's basically 5 cents a shot. Okay. Can you imagine if our BBs were 5 cents a shot? No one would play. That's the big advantage of airsoft. It's cheaper. But since they don't make that money on paint, they're going to give you the leftovers, the leftover field that none of the paintball players are using, or a leftover time where there's no paintballers there because they make more money off paintballers. It is what it is. We can't argue our way around that. It doesn't mean they can't make money off airsoft players. They can. There's currently two, where I'm at, there's two paintball places that let us play. There's Husker Paintball and CJ's Paintball. And they both charge the same, $20. So we pay our $20 and we get to play all day. For what it's worth, they're both very accommodating to us. They're both excellent organizations, and I'm glad they're there, because now if anybody gets hurt, it falls under their liability policy, and it's not on any of the game organizers. That is definitely the better way to do it. Okay. Game mechanics. Just a quick note on game mechanics. Game mechanics matter. Okay. They mean things. I played a game the other day at a paintball field. I'm not going to say which one. And we had a ref, and he was paintball ref, because they started using the paintball refs for reffing airsoft, which is fine. and he set up a game that didn't really work. It's like, oh, here's this flag. I'm going to hide this flag in the field somewhere in the center, and you have to get the flag to the other side's base, the other team's base. And I said, okay, where's the respawn? He goes, their base. And I was like, how are you going to get a flag to a base when people are respawning at it? It's essentially uncapturable. And that's just lazy game organization. That's just lazy game admin. It is, and it's a very common problem because people just, well, there's your base, respawn to the base. They don't think about, well, how does that actually play out? And it's common sense. You're not going to be able to capture that if people can automatically respawn there. It's fucking stupid. But all it takes for them to do is put a point, halfway between the midpoint and that base, and put a flag there and go, okay, take the flag you find and put it there, and you plant it there and you win. That's all it takes. But people are lazy and they don't think about that. Understand that small game mechanic rules can make big differences on the field. Okay, like changing your respawn from instant to on the twos, which would mean every time there's two people in the respawn, then they can leave. Another one is you put a little clock at each respawn. You have people respawn on the 5s or the 10s, which means anytime the game or the time is on a 5 or a 10, that you can respawn in. So you might be waiting 9 minutes, you might be waiting 1 minute. Those little things, especially if one team has like a better respawn than the other one, better location, you can flex those respawn rules a little bit to kind of even things out. Respawn rules make a big difference. The other one is medic rules. Medic rules can really modify. Sorry, I'm reading these chats. I'll get to them later. Medic rules can really modify how the game plays. Giving more favorable medic rules to a team that's not doing so well can really turn the tide pretty quickly. And it's a little more subtle than moving players around. Understand that medic rules are not like combat medic training. And I can't stand it when Milsim games organizers try to pretend like we're going to put this bandage on you and it's going to simulate whatever. It's going to simulate I'm giving you, life-saving medical treatment. The whole point of medic rules is to keep players in contact more often. Okay. And so you're not spending all our time going back and forth to respawn. You're actually in contact. The other thing I like about medic rules is if somebody gets shot and they're wounded and they have a bleed out time, whether it be 5 minutes or whatever, 1 minute optional, they can leave if they want. I think that's a good rule. But whatever. All of a sudden that downed player becomes a mini objective that if I want to save that player, I have to push towards him to get past him and then I can medic him. I just like that concept of having, medic rules that create like a mini objective on the field. One thing I have been considering, or I would like someone, because I don't put on games anymore, I would like them to consider is actually using real tourniquets instead of the little just nylon Velcro things that they call a tourniquet that aren't really a tourniquet. And I know lots of game organizers, they like having those because then they can make them real cheap and they can put their name of, whatever Milsim company it is, and they can sell them when you get to the game for $4 or whatever, and they make a lot of profit. That's cool. But I think if you actually want to have some real world training application, you have people use real tourniquets. Now, obviously you're not going to crank that down all the way because that's stupid. Okay. But like a real world soft T tourniquet costs, like a cat tourniquet from North American Medical. That's like the go-to one for most people. I know I screwed up that name. I'll put a link in it below later. They cost like $25, $20 for the real ones. Now you can get a whole crap load of knockoffs. The knockoffs, which look the same, but they don't work as well, they cost like, I don't know, you can get 5 for like $12. I think those are the ones that people should buy for Airsoft because they're cheap and they simulate the real thing. It's a 1-to-1 replica. It's just made out of cheaper materials. The windlass in particular is pretty cheap. But I believe it would be very beneficial for players. Like, oh, we're going to actually learn something helpful while we're playing Airsoft, something that can save your life or save someone else's life. Because, one of the number one causes of preventable death is blood loss on an extremity. And that's not necessarily just gunfire. That's all sorts of things, car wrecks or just accidents or whatever. And you could just at your briefing go, hey, here's what we're using for your tourniquets. They're don't crank them on too tight. Put them high and tight on your arm. Wind it in tight till it's just stiff and it's not going to move, and then Velcro it down. And I think you're actually learning something good that's applicable to real life, and two, it's a little more complicated than just putting the Velcro ones on that people have been using. I like that idea. It's my personal thing that I would like to do. It's in my opinion, learning how to properly apply a tourniquet should be as common as CPR and the Heimlich maneuver. Those are things that every kid should learn in grade school, high school, whatever. I've been training CPR and the Heimlich maneuver my whole career as a law enforcement officer. And to date, I have used the Heimlich maneuver 4 times, and none of them was on duty. They were all off duty when I was just, out and about doing stuff. Twice was on kids that I am confident. I know for a fact they would have died had I not been there. It's not because I'm a freaking hero or anything. It's just that when you use a Heimlich maneuver on a kid who's choking on a grape, it's absolutely terrifying. And the other 2 times were on adults, and everybody survived, and it works great. But I think the same should go for tourniquet use. I think it'd be great for Airsoft to use that as their medic rule. Finally, last thing I want to talk about before I open up to the chat here is it is Memorial Day weekend. Those who don't know, I'm a big fan of the Murph workout. I do it every Memorial Day, give or take a day. I'm probably going to try to do it tomorrow. It's to commemorate Mike Murphy, who Navy SEAL. He was, and I'm going to screw this all up, but if you watch the movie Lone Survivor, Mark Murphy's I believe he was a lieutenant that was in charge of that unit that got overrun. He was a big fitness guy, and the workout is to commemorate him. So it's you do a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and a 1 mile run while wearing a 20-pound vest. You don't have to wear the 20-pound vest. Lots of people do it without the vest. I don't care how long it takes you to do it. It's just a great workout, and I'm a big fan of it. I did it last year with the vest on. I think I posted my best time. It was something like 36 minutes. This year, I'm probably going to be a little slower than that. The difference between me doing it for 36 minutes and me doing it for like 41 minutes is the difference between me like almost having a heart attack and just having a good workout. So I'm not always trying to set records. Sometimes I just want to just do it to have a good workout. All right, to the chats. Santi Super Stunts. Hoping to see your opinion on timed grenades versus impact grenades and which are the best cost-effective grenades of that type. I still use Thunder Bees, which are pretty dated right now, but I just have so damn many of them that I still use them. I think I covered this in a previous video. I definitely think timed grenades are the better way to go, but it needs to be a short timer. It needs to be like 2 seconds, and it needs to be a consistent 2 seconds. Impact grenades are just too consistent, and sometimes you got to bounce it off a wall or whatever. Impact grenades just aren't realistic. Real world, I can't think of any real world impact grenade I've ever used. But time grenade is just the way to go with a real short fuse. So, and cost effective, I like the Thunder Bees, but they're kind of dated right now. I haven't kept up on what grenades are the go-to ones. All the ones that actually have some sort of charge in them are a little bit more explosive or a little bit more expensive. I have used several at other games that people just give to me to try out, and I think they're awesome. But then it's like, well, how much is that? Oh, it's $8. I'm like, I don't really want to spend $8 for a grenade. Maybe other people have deeper pockets than me, but I just don't think they're that effective to be worth it. I don't know, maybe I'd buy 1 or 2, but I see guys buying just boxes of these things. Okay. Covered that one. MK4J. Planning on getting a DMR and I want to HPA it, but how do I? Since it has a 2.5 gearbox, any insight on how to do it? I don't do HPA. I don't. I'm a hardcore AEG guy. In fact, I played last Sunday and I was talking to a player there. And for the first time, I was considering building a HPA gun. And I'm going to go to this player who does a lot of them for assistance probably. I'm still not quite ready to do it, but it's definitely on the horizon. It's for my Arcturus AK 101. I love that gun, but the battery compartment is so small. I'm like, how's battery compartment's pain in the ass? I can only get a 900 mAh 11.1 stick battery under the top cover. Can't stand it. What's the solution? Oh, just HPA. Just spend $600 and switch to HPA. So it's probably on the horizon. I'm gonna switch that gun to HPA. So I've been a holdout for the AEG for a long time. You guys are gonna forgive me. My dog is chewing a toy that he's not supposed to chew. Duke, stop. Yeah. Okay, he got caught. Rob the Viking. Good name. The strategy you showed about pressuring while another person flanks was used on me. It is impossible to counter. That strategy you showed about pressuring while another person flanks was used on me. Possible to counter. I would say nothing's impossible to counter, but it's obviously it's effective. It's real. That's just basic. One guy suppresses while the other guy flanks. But when you're in a situation like that, a lot of times the best thing you can do is try to safely retreat straight back. Try to outshoot the guy who's shooting at you, the guy who's suppressing you, and then fall back. So falling back tends to, if two guys are flanking you and you fall back, it puts them in a more narrow angle, if that makes sense, because you're pulling farther away from them. Never underestimate. Sometimes you just gotta bravely run away, retreat. I do tactical retreats all the time. Sometimes you just gotta run away. Phone's blowing up. My birthday is coming up. I need a gift. Any ideas? Hell, I don't know. I like the Arcturus AKs. I think they're awesome. But if you're looking at, Airsoft gift, what are you talking about? If you're of age, whiskey is always a good gift. I prefer whiskey. Oh, Adesia Donnelly. Hello, waited a long time for the live streaming. Yes, I apologize. I don't know how the hell to do that shit. I think I have to download some live streaming software. And I am garbage at technology. I really am. I'm struggling daily. My fiance is a lot better at it than I am. I think I should probably have her help me do this, and then I could have an actual live stream and get some software, and you guys could, I don't know, see all the chats or something. I don't know. Very struggling daily with technology and trying to make this work. Adesia, and I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. I was curious about if there's a standard CQB education curriculum. Can you tell us how you teach? There are a lot of different CQB methods out there. The more traditional one is stack and flow. I am a proponent of high threat CQB, which is also called threshold assaults. And then there's in between those two, there's what they call hybrid. And hybrid is based on you're gonna stack and flow, or you're going to threshold assault based on the threats that you are encountering and the mission at hand. In my opinion, the only time you would stack and flow is on a hostage rescue, and those are extremely rare. And basically, because there's an innocent life in the room that raises the level that you're willing to give up your safety in exchange for that person's life. In my career, I've only been involved in 2 hostage rescue operations. They're extremely rare, both of which were successful, thank God. They're extremely rare. So for the most part, I'm a threshold assault guy 99% of the time, because hostage rescue is just so incredibly rare. Sandy Super Stunts. Question about safety. Let's say someone is running a gas blowback rifle and they chrono at 420 FPS and the limit is 400. So that hypothetically person lets out some gas to lower the FPS, but the game starts, they refill it. No, you're done. I'm not going to let that person play on my field. If you're hot, you're hot. I'm not going to play the game of you shoot that magazine a third of the way down and now it's legal. That's no. If it's hot, it's hot. And I had a gun that was running hot the other day, and I had to, because I like running my guns right up at the limit. And sometimes they got a different, the game organizer is using a different chrono than I use here. And now it's, 5 FPS over, and hot's hot. I don't give a shit. I go back to my truck and I take out my tools and I fix it and go back and chrono. And now I'm done, or I'm in the legal area. If I can't fix it that day, that's why you bring a backup gun that you know's under. So that's just me. And honestly, that should be all field organizers. I know a lot of field organizers aren't as hardcore about chronos and FPS as I am, but that's liability, that's safety. You can't flex on that one. Sandy Super Stunts, it should be our duty to notify the organizer, correct? Yes, it is your duty to notify the organizer that your gun is hot. Yeah, everybody's safety has got to be no performance in this game is worth anybody getting hurt over. I don't, especially like kids and stuff. I would hate to think that my gun was running hot and somebody got hurt just so I could get a kill, and all of a sudden they got a BB bust out a teeth, or one of their teeth, or through an ear or something. It's not worth it. So, in my opinion, the 20 FPS wouldn't be that much of a jump. Then again, you can always ask for heavier BBs. Well, no, you can't ask for heavier BBs because it's based on joules, and yeah, that doesn't get around your liability there. All right. Yeah, you guys got to play within the rules of the chrono, whatever class you're playing. A lot of places, if you're over 400, they'll just let you play as a DMR, and instead of having a 20-foot med or no med that you would have for a rifleman, you have a 40-foot med as a DMR, and that's fine. Do you think it's necessary to get a pistol with a DMR? Yes, absolutely. You need to carry a pistol if you're carrying a DMR, because otherwise you can't shoot within the med, and then you're basically defenseless, and you're going to get shot. So you got to have something that can work inside that med. Otherwise, you're just going to get overrun. All right, and there's some creepy people in the chat. How do I get rid of that? Remove. Sorry. Thanks for playing. Yeah. You're about to get banned. Taylor, regarding safety concern. At a field, can you suggest how to broach the subject with the field operators without coming off as not minding my own business? If you have a safety concern, it's on you. Yeah, you definitely got to bring it up to the game organizer. And the question is, are you going to keep playing there if they don't acknowledge your concern? And I left a game once because that was happening with some kid's house. And it was his parents owned a farm, and it was at that farm, and they had a bunch of shit out everywhere. And they called it a CQB field, and whatever. Everybody was speaking glowingly about it. And then my team went there, and we finally tried it out. And I found out pretty early that this kid would let his friends shoot whatever HPA gun they wanted at any setting they wanted, and just be target practice for everybody else who showed up there. And a couple of my guys got hit with some BBs that were like solid hits. And I'm talking from a pretty far distance, like 200, 250 feet. And they had welts, like big welts. And then I got hit by one of these, and it was high, like up here. And it felt like, damn near like a ball bearing. I mean, it was a whack. And I said, I'm done. I ragged up. I went and looked for the guy. I never could find him because I think he ran and hid because he saw me coming, and then it stopped. But I told the game organizer, I'm like, we're leaving. I'm out of here because this isn't safe, and this is not how you run a organization or how you run a game. You just don't do it this way. And that guy wasn't putting on games very long. He went on to, according to him, join the special forces and become amazing or something. But he was amazing. Just ask him; he'll tell you all about it. But yeah, sometimes you just got to walk away and not play there. It is what it is. If it's too dangerous to play there, get out of there. Odessia, what can we do when we are in a hallway and enemy starts shooting blind fire from a door in front of us? Like only exposing gun. Well, blind fire, I don't know of a single place that allows blind fire. You can't allow blind fire. Blind fire The reason you can't allow blind fire is because you don't know if somebody advances and you're shooting them at like 5 feet, violating the med. Does that mean it doesn't happen? No, it does happen. When I see blind fire, I have found in my experience, if I say no blind fire and just yell it up to the person, that immediately corrects the problem. I've never had that not correct the problem. And honestly, blind fire is just not effective. It's just not all you're doing is giving away your position and not really getting anything done. So as far as how you would address it, grenade's a great option. Throwing it down that hall. I don't know. I would rather advance down a hall with somebody blind firing than somebody actually using cover and getting behind their sights and not giving up much and seeing what they were shooting at. I would think it'd be easier to get down the hall if somebody's blind firing. I'd wait for a reload and then try to advance on it, or just suppress the hell out of it. You shoot the gun, they're going to stop blind firing. Derpy Castles. Any tips for rifle slings to not hurt your neck over time? Yeah. There's a bunch of products that people sell called like neck savers or sling savers. And when I do this later, when I re-edit this, I'll put some photos in here of them. Basically it's like a little hook, like a little plastic hook that sits on your shoulder of your plate carrier. It hooks into the band that goes over the top on your shoulder. And those, I've used those in the past and I've had decent luck with them. I don't use them now because I just got over it, but they do work. Those sling guards that protect your neck do work pretty well. I've seen other guys kind of hook in their sling like right here in their shoulders, and it's like a short Y sling. That's all in the front. I don't really like those. That's an option. It does keep it off your neck. I've seen other people do kind of a similar thing, but they wrap the sling through the molly on the back of their plate carrier on the top, and then they just have the 2 points come over the top, and then they just attach it here. So it pulls on the molly of your upper back instead of pulling on your neck. All those are viable options. Or you can just, deal with it. I just deal with it because most of the time I'm not like, my sling doesn't rest on my neck. Most of the time I'm holding the weight of the weapon. The only time my sling is actually doing its job is when I'm transitioning or maybe climbing over something like a fence or something. And then I have to have that sling do its job. But most of the time the sling isn't doing its job. Most of the time the sling is not putting pressure on my neck. How useful is suppressive fire in CQB when running alone and when running with a partner? So suppressive fire is always useful. It's always a good technique. It's always a good tactic. You can provide your own suppressive fire, and I've covered this in some tactical videos about strategy. I can suppress that guy and move from this piece of cover to that piece of cover, and then when he comes back out, he still thinks I'm over here when in fact I'm over here. That gives me an advantage. An OODA loop advantage, okay, because I know where he's at and he doesn't know where I'm at. You can always provide your own suppressive fire to disguise your movement from one location to another. Is it always better to have a friend? Yes, always better to have multiple friends. But there's got to be a point to your suppressive fire. Don't just suppress to suppress. Like, I know that guy's on that piece of cover, so I'm going to shoot it because I like to shoot my gun and waste BBs. That's dumb. There should be a purpose to your suppressive fire. Either I'm masking my movement, or I'm masking someone else's movement, or we're maneuvering, or or I'm just keeping him delayed while something else is going on. Maybe we're prepping a grenade and we got to suppress that guy for a moment to give us some time. There's got to be a point, a reason to what you're doing. Otherwise, all you're doing is giving away your position and exposing yourself needlessly. So have a reason that you do things. Santee super stunts. Should you suppress with pistols? They don't have much ammo, so it seems like I'm shooting rounds that aren't doing anything. I agree with you. I would not suppress with a pistol if I could help it at all. If you're, A pistol's a defensive weapon. A pistol's a oh shit weapon. Like, oh, this person's inside my med and I have a DMR. Oh, my primary went down and it's an emergency and I have to use this pistol for a very short period of time. Or this guy's in a very tight corner that I can't quite fit my rifle around, so I'm going to use my pistol instead to clear that corner. That's what pistols are for. Pistols are not for like fighting. They just don't have the volume. They don't have the volume of fire. They don't have anything. Pistols are shit. Shit in airsoft, and honestly, in the real world, the reason people use pistols is because they're concealable and they're easy to carry. I mean, I can't go walk into Walmart with my rifle slung. It doesn't work that way. Not in this state. So, some people say pistols are only good for fighting to get your rifle, to use to get to your rifle. Personally, if you want my law enforcement opinion, if I think I'm going to get in a gunfight, I'm bringing a rifle and friends with rifles. That's how I do it. A pistol's just so I can have something on me for when the fight happens when I don't expect it. So I don't put a lot of weight in your pistols. That's why I don't get wrapped around the axle about which pistol I use. This new pistol came out and let's upgrade my pistol a lot. Why? I never use it, and an upgraded pistol is only be marginally better than a not upgraded pistol, and it's still going to be shitty compared to a rifle. Okay, Tyler. My safety concern was that the field I was at didn't chrono, and they don't post rules anywhere. They do a great safety brief, though. Okay, do a great safety brief, but if you don't chrono, you don't know what you're getting shot with. And some tells me their friends who are probably using HPA, because not all cheaters use HPA, but not all HPA users are cheaters, but all cheaters use HPA. I'm a big fan of that. A lot of people use HPA just because they can crank it up and they can fuck with the dwell time and they can just really get that joules and that muzzle velocity way up there, and because it gives them an advantage and they don't care about hurting people. It's selfish and it's petty. I would say play better. I would be really skeptical of any place that doesn't have, if you don't have a chrono. I mean, what are you doing? I get it if everybody's friends and I chronoed that gun 3 games ago and it's the same gun and I know that guy and I trust that player and he's got the same twist tie on his gun that he had from 3 games ago. And so we're not going to chrono it again. I get it. Especially when you got 30 players, you don't want to run 30 people through the chrono every game. Trust me, I get it. But first game of the season, everybody's got a chrono. New players, they got a chrono. And then, a couple times in the season, spot check 5 guys and chrono all of them. You got to keep on that chrono stuff. Otherwise, people are going to sneak in and cheat because people want the advantage. Derpy Castles. Are you still doing gameplay critiques? Love that series, and you even covered my local field. I would love to do gameplay critiques. Send me some gameplay. I got a couple guys who have emailed me and say, hey, I'm working on getting some good gameplay footage for you. They're having some camera issues or there just wasn't any games locally. So I do have guys who are trying to send me video. I've had a couple of the videos that just weren't that good or just weren't worth. I mean, if you send me a 45-second video, how am I going to talk about that for more than 2 minutes? I mean, there's just not that much there. So I prefer unedited videos. Some people are sending me heavily edited videos that are kind of, the best thing they did that day, which, okay, well, that not much I can do with that. So yes, I do want to continue doing that series. I just haven't had a lot of stuff in lately. So MK4J, it's probably J, MK4J. Best way to sling a DMR since I own a AK-74U and the sling I use probably won't work on a DMR. I was thinking in the 3-point sling, but I don't know. 3 points suck. Sling points, 3-point sling. Sorry, not sling points suck. 3 points suck. 3-point slings are good if you're standing in front of, let's say, a garrison or something, and you're in the military and you have to stand there for 8 hours with your weapon. That's what 3 points are made for. 3 points are not made for fighting. I would recommend what you're asking me there is that you do a 2-point sling and a 2-point adjustable sling. A mag pull is what I would do. And I'm trying to think if I have one handy in my vault over here that I can just grab and show you real quick. But I generally use 1-points when I play airsoft. On a long gun like a DMR, I might do a 2-point, but I generally just use 1-points in airsoft. But yeah, the nice thing about 2-points are also easier on your neck than a 1-point. I would never use a 3-point for anything. That's like really, really old school. Is it really hard to find a good place to play without people having problems? Thomas Robinson. I don't know what problems are referring to, like airsoft drama or like people getting pissed off or people getting buttered. I mean, there's bad people everywhere and bad people in every sport. I have seen that some communities are more toxic than others. The communities that I play at locally right now are all very, very good. There's great people. Everybody's friends. Okay. The issue I find is often with teams, and I'm on an airsoft team, but my team's great. But anytime you get in the realm of, well, my team is better than your team and we can prove it, or your team sucks, or your patch sucks, or who fucking cares? It's airsoft. When that happens, mix the teams. Take half of your team, half of the other team, and mix them and play together. You know, it's easy to be bitter and mean and pissed off at someone when they're a stranger, or you other them to the point where you say that guy's a dick or that guy's a bad guy. And at the end of the day, we're all doing the same sport. We have more in common with that guy on this side of the field than you do with 90% of the public, because this sport is so uncommon. Mix the teams. Learn to play with that person. You'd be surprised. You might, get along with them. There's not a lot of airsoft players that I just genuinely do not like. And if I don't like you, it has nothing to do with how you play, and it has everything to do with just your personality. You're just not a good person. You're just a bad person. And I don't want you around me. So like the guy I used to have that would come to the games that I would put on, and he would show up drunk and he would drink on the field and he'd think it would be cool. Had nothing to do with his airsoft playing ability. It had everything to do with the fact that he was a drunk. So get those toxic people out of your life. Santi Super Stunts. I'd love to send in a gameplay for you to critique, but I don't have a GoPro to record my games. Well, that is a problem. Get yourself a GoPro. Try to. There's lots of good filming options out there. I'm hoping to get some videos soon. I think that's a good series, and I'd like to do a lot more of it. So, because who gives a shit about what I'm doing? Who cares about how I play? I mean, everybody makes gameplay videos of themselves, but nobody makes gameplay videos like critiquing other people and people who actually know some shit about real world stuff. So, and I think that's the niche that I can fill, in the YouTube airsoft space, is actually having some, not that I'm the only guy with real world experience, but I'm the only guy that's probably going to be doing critique videos saying, work on this. This is good. This is bad. I think a lot of people are worried that I'm going to be like hypercritical, and that's just not the case. I don't expect everybody to know everything. I don't know everything. I would never pretend to know everything. All I'm giving you is a critique from one person's professional perspective, and professionals can disagree. It happens all the time in my line of work. Something will happen. We'll have a debate about tactics and whether that was a good idea, a bad idea, whatever. And two people who are both professionals and both very good at their jobs can have a disagreement, about a professional disagreement about whether or not that was the smartest thing to do that day. So that's common. And I make mistakes in training all the time. That's why we train, so we can make mistakes and learn from them. And if you're too big to learn from your mistakes, you're never going to grow. You're never going to get any better. And I've been doing this crap I've been doing SWAT for 12 years. I still make mistakes, and I still learn from mistakes. I'm still getting better. I was training a recruit today on basic firearms, her trigger squeeze on her handgun. And she was asking me some questions about, getting better at this and how long does it take you to work on this? And I'm like, well, I'm still working on my trigger squeeze, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years. So I'll tell you when I figure that out. I'm still learning too. Just because I'm an instructor doesn't mean that I've figured it all out, because I have not. I've come a long way, but you need to always be learning. So I'm a big fan of Miyamoto Musashi, samurai. If you guys haven't noticed, it's kind of a samurai theme going on here. Like my tattoos and shit are all like samurai based. Samurais doing shit. When I first started fighting when I was 14, I did a thing called Bushido Karate, and the everything was in Japanese. And I was taught by an Irish guy named Mick Doyle, who's an amazing coach and a very good friend, close friend, godparent of both my kids. But he learned from basically Japanese school, and so they did everything in Japanese, and it was all Bushido karate. Bushido's samurai code and all this, and that kind of stuck with me at the young age of 14 when I started learning. And it was a hard karate style. It was like bare knuckle karate, like what they do at the Sabaki and the Shidokan. Those are bare knuckle karate tournaments. And so that was my introduction to the whole warrior lifestyle, warrior ethos, was this Bushido karate, which was heavily based in Japanese culture and, that stuff. And it kind of stuck with me, obviously, because, I got samurai on my goddamn patch and covered in samurai tattoos. So, where the hell was I going with that? I lost track what I was talking about. Somebody help me out. Oh, Miyamoto Musashi. So that Miyamoto Musashi was a really, famous Japanese samurai, and he wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings. Look it up. It's pretty short. You can read it in one setting. It's real short. He's a fascinating guy, Musashi, and a really interesting life. But he had this saying that I used to know in Japanese, and I don't anymore, is everything in the world outside of myself is my teacher. And I'm a firm believer in that. Everything outside of yourself is your teacher. You never stop learning. We're always a work in progress. Now that I got that aside out of the way. If you go to open play games, what is your favorite game mode? One guy from Ukraine. I have a game mode I call 3 flag attack and defend, or 4 flag, whatever you want to do. And that is my favorite. And basically, you have an attacking side that has unlimited lives. I'm sorry, you have a defend. Yeah, the attacking side has unlimited lives. The defending side has 3 lives. And there'll be 3 points, linearly or whatever, down the field. And obviously, the attacking team's job is to attack and capture those points, all 3 points. And it's for time. Okay. And because the attackers have unlimited lives and the defenders only have 3 lives, sooner or later, the attackers will win. It's inevitable. But it's just based on how fast do they do it. The reason I like it is, one, the attackers, you will get a win. The attackers will win, because I don't like airsoft games where one side, because the teams are imbalanced, and one side just gets their ass kicked all day. That doesn't make for people. People don't return to play again when they get their ass kicked all day. The other reason I like it is it uses the entire field. A lot of, I'm sure people play team deathmatch. You'll notice that there's choke points on the field, and then the whole fight, the whole day is at those choke points, and nobody ever moves. When you do a 3 flag attack defend, then you're using the entire field. And I usually tell the defenders, you can, every time you die, move back to the next flag, or the area around the next flag, or linear online with that next flag. So we use the whole field. They don't have to, but that's what I recommend, so they get a nice, even gameplay throughout. That is my personal favorite game mode, because it does use all the field. And then you just flip it. When you're done, you keep track of how long it took the one team to finish it. You flip it and see how fast the other team can do the same objectives. So when it comes to live combat, can Airsoft translate training with toy guns to live combat skills when deployed, whether military or law enforcement? That's a big question. I think I've done some videos on that in the past. Short version, no. And I mean, live combat, what does one consider combat? I don't think I've ever been in combat. I've been around a lot of gunfire, But in my opinion, combat's like an extended like engagement between two forces, and it's over a long period of time. In law enforcement, it's always so short. It's fast. Seconds, microseconds is how fast these kind of things last. Can airsoft training with toy guns to live combat, can it translate? Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Absolutely. Anytime. My short answer is no. My long answer is yes, it can when done correctly. Anytime you're shooting projectiles at each other that cause pain, there is a training value there. Okay, because the pain that it causes makes you not want to get hit, so you use cover well. If nothing else, you're learning how to use cover. Anytime you're shooting projectiles at each other, you're going to learn how to use OODA loops and suppressive fire and any number of skills. There's value in all of that. The problem is it prepares you for the real thing? Can it? Yes. Can you learn some real skills for the real thing that are going to help you survive? Yes. And succeed? Absolutely. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, in airsoft or paintball or whatever you're playing, it's a game and you're not going to die. And when the real bullets start flying, the only thing on your mind is really that, fuck, I don't want to die. Yes, the training takes over and usually everything happens so fast and you don't realize the danger when you're in it. And afterwards you're like, well, that was really dangerous. But that's not a small thing. The fear of death is real and it's very serious, and it does change everything. The stress of that changes everything. So yes, it can have a value, but you got to do it right. And it'll help, but it's still, when you're in the shit, you're not going to want to be there. Everybody wants the gunfight till they're in it. And it's kind of scary. I love playing medic the most, man. Derpy Castles. I love playing medic the most, in my opinion. Cool. I like medics. I like having a good medic on your team. Good medic on your team is worth its weight in gold. Person who's actually willing to advance carefully, because once the medic gets shot, they're fucked. You're all fucked. And also a good medic who can actually acknowledge the fact that I can't get to that guy. And if I run out and get to that guy, I'm going to get hit, and I'm not good to anybody. Sometimes a good medic has to know that, let's push everybody else up, and he'll grab someone and go, hey, I want to get to him. We need to push up. We need to move to that position to suppress there and push these guys off so I can go up and medic that guy. But a medic that has the smarts to not just run up every time somebody gets hit, because you're not going to do any good. Have you talked before, MLZ player, have you talked before about attacking APCs, IFVs in scenario games? What is an IFV? Infantry fighting vehicle? Because I know an APC is an armored personnel carrier. No, I haven't. And there's a reason I haven't, because I haven't had a lot of experience with that in airsoft. I have a D-Day Adventureland Park a few times. And in law enforcement, we don't do that. We don't have armored personnel carriers, and we don't have infantry fighting vehicles. We have cruisers. We have a couple up-armored vehicles and vans, but we don't have those. So anything that I would tell you about that would be just purely just me firing from the hip and not really based on real-world experience. I know some of those bigger games, those bigger Milsim games like at D-Day Adventureland Park that have a lot of vehicles, it's a big deal that guys have those grenade launchers, whether they're using the tagging grenades or whatever, or the rocket launchers. I've never wanted to carry one of those things because it's a pain in the ass. I have played a couple games where there was an armored vehicle and somebody was there that took it out, and that was nice because I was tired of getting shot by it. So, they do work. I find they're kind of expensive and they're inconsistent. And you know how hard it is to get someone, so it's hard to get those vehicles to call the hit sometimes, because usually they got to hit it right on the windshield or something for it to count. And, the people in the vehicle don't want to drive back and be dead, But I have played some cool games with some cool vehicles. I played games with helicopters. That's pretty cool. Obviously, you can't shoot the helicopter. It's dangerous. But, I've had ones with tanks and stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I had one that if you could get a grenade in the vehicle, you could take it out. I think that's pretty cool because they got to roll with like the windows down. So that was kind of fun. I saw one guy once do a really awesome grenade throw that actually went in the turret, and they called it. So, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on APCs and vehicles. It's just not that common where I play. I played a mini op, a 1-day op, and I like 1-day ops a few weeks ago, and there was a guy there that had this. He was kind of an older guy. He was a Vietnam vet, and he had some mobility issues. And because he wanted to keep playing Airsoft, he got himself a little like a go-kart thing, and he put plywood all around it, and that was their tank. And whatever. He had fun, so more power to him, but it wasn't really that neat. In my opinion, it was kind of ridiculous and probably not worth the trouble to bring it out on a trailer, but that's me, a guy who's ambulatory and can still play. And the only way this guy can play is with that tank. So hey, more power to him. If he wants to use it and the game organizers won't let him use it, and that's the only way he can play, good on him. I hope to be sitting on a beach when I'm his age, not playing Airsoft and not doing anything, sitting on the beach and drinking whiskey. What do you think are the most important skills for CQB? Good question. The most important skills. I would say number one is your ability to use cover, your ability to maximize your use of cover, and look around cover, not over cover. I think I've done like 2 videos on use of cover. That's cover's critical. Tucking the elbow, using the knee knock, leaning out appropriately. That's critical. That's a big one. Other skills, I would say understanding OODA loops is really important, and that's the one that most people struggle with because it's kind of difficult. Observe, orient, decide, act. The short version is you always want to be surprising your opponent. You want them to not know where you're at. You want to be one step ahead of them. You want them to think you're somewhere else. That's OODA loops are critical in CQB, but it's hard to learn OODA loops without just putting a lot of time in, a lot of time getting shot at and shooting people. That's how you learn OODA loops. So if you aren't good at OODA loops, then use of cover. Use of cover is more important than transitions. It's more important than reloads. It's more important than everything. Reloads, and I like being able to do fast reloads because it looks cool. But honestly, very, very, very few gunfights are decided by who can do a faster reload. I would say less than 1 in 1,000. Gunfights are rare. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Yeah, spend your time, learn how to use cover. We train officers to do reloads, obviously, but in the last 10 years, we've shifted a lot of our training over to here's how you use cover, because cover is life. So most gunfights are decided by who reaches cover first and can effectively put rounds on the target. An extended gunfight, not just like a real quick ambush. Guy in my paintball field is 72. He is by far the coolest guy I know. Yeah, I mean, older players are great. I just don't want to be doing this at 72. I'm 42. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this when I'm 50. Maybe I will. Might be on the beach. We'll see. I'm hoping to retire at 48. Might retire at 45. We'll see. Retire from law enforcement, not retire from work entirely. I'll go do something else. We tried playing horror games or survival horror games. Oh, video games. I'm shit at video games. I'm fucking garbage at video games. I'm not good. Especially anything online where I'm playing against other players, like Call of Duty or whatnot. I have played some. What was the space one that I played? It was a sequel. End Space 2, maybe? Something like that. It was on Xbox. It was a horror space sci-fi game. That game was the shit. I love that game. That was awesome. But So someone put a comment there telling what game I'm trying to talk about. I don't think it's called End Space. It's called something else. But I really love that game. Dead Space. There you go. Thank you. Dead Space 2. Yeah, Dead Space 2 was the shit. I never played Dead Space 1. I think they made a Dead Space 3 and I never played it. I don't have a lot of time for video games. But that is the one horror game I played. It was a lot of fun. But if you guys want a video game guy, that ain't me. I'm still playing Vigor a little bit, Vigor. It's kind of a really strategic survival game, real short gunfights, and it's a lot of fun. I'm not good at it though. I would go live, but it would just be pathetic. You don't want to see me play that game. It's bad. So yeah, you can on Xbox. I'm Gunfather 6. That's my Xbox handle. That's been my Xbox handle since when the Xbox 360 came out, which was like 2000, probably 3 or 4 or something like that. So, but I'm just not good at video games. So, any other questions? I see you guys. Things kind of slowing down here. It's been about an hour and 11 minutes. I generally go for about an hour and 15. And then when I edit it down, it ends up being in about an hour when I edit out all the silly stuff. I apologize for not knowing how to stream. And when I post a stream on YouTube and I say, hey, I'm gonna do this stream in 2 days or whatever, because I want to give everybody a heads up. And then when it actually happens and I go to that screen to like open the stream, there's no place to open it or no place that I can see. I think if you set up the live stream ahead of time, you have to actually do the actual live stream and not just with my camera here on my laptop. I don't know. I'm working on it. I apologize. As a SWAT officer, which mission is the most intense close quarters that you have ever experienced? That's a tough one. The most intense. I was in a hostage rescue operation where there was a crazy guy with a sword that was trying to kill a 2-week-old baby. And we had to make entry on that one. And the negotiator gave up, and not really gave up. I've never seen I have seen negotiators give up, but the negotiator was getting really frustrated trying to talk to this guy, and the guy was mentally ill and high on drugs. And he looked just like Kimbo Slice, oddly enough. And the baby was his child. And the negotiator, I remember the negotiator, we were out in the hallway of an apartment, and the negotiator looked at us and he goes, "You're going to have to go." He goes, "I'm getting nowhere. He's going to kill this kid." And we made entry, ran in. The guy went into the room with the baby, and the baby was on a mattress on the floor. And the guy held up the sword and he's going, "I'm going to kill her." And honestly, it was probably suicide by cop. I sincerely believe that. We'll never know because the guy's not with us anymore. And I was number 2. The number 1 guy got to the door and put him down. And it was a range of like 3 feet. Shot this guy in the face. And the bullet actually went in and hit him in the upper, in his teeth, and bounced out the side of his face. It wouldn't have killed him. The second shot went in his upper lungs. That would have killed him eventually, but didn't immediately. He dropped down. And then the third shot went through his C2 vertebrae and shut him off like a light. And this big guy just fell. He fell actually like right on top of the baby. So then we made entry on the room, and I go and I flip this guy off the baby, and I look down, and there's this 2-week-old baby just looking at me, and fine, absolutely fine, not injured, nothing wrong with it, not even crying. And I remember, snatching up that baby and handing it to another officer, and the officer running out the room with the baby, and then putting the guy in cuffs who really didn't have a head anymore, because that's what we do. And yeah, that was pretty intense. That was pretty lively. And I didn't have a shot, because if I would have shot, the muzzle blast off the front of my rifle would have taken away the hearing and probably damaged the face of the number 1 guy who did shoot. He did a great job, and and we all got medals. God, there was another one. I've had a couple good ones. That was probably the most intense. That was a hostage rescue, which is like the creme de la creme of SWAT operations is a hostage rescue. I've had ones where it was just a big dope house, and I generally am the first guy in, and the position I am is bunker one. That's the guy with the ballistic shield. It's bunker one. And in this particular house, it was in the winter and it was really crowded, and no one was compliant. And I was, just smashing this guy with the shield, kicking this guy, hitting this guy, and I kept moving forward, because if you're the first guy with the bunker, if you're not moving forward, no one's moving forward. So if I just stuck in a doorway, no help is coming because no one can get past me. And I just kept going and going and going. And I think I had to use force on 5 different people in this small little apartment. And I felt like, Jesus, where the fuck is everybody else? Am I the only one here? Because I'm like, I know there were 10 of you behind me, and I just kept hitting people and stepping over them. And then I finally got to the last guy and, defeated him and put him in cuffs. And I looked behind me, and sure enough, there's the rest of the team picking up all these people I'd left behind me in my wake. So that was a really intense one. I actually got pretty winded on that. That was several years ago. So those are 2 story time. Any recommendations to help getting into the police force? Yeah, apply often, and be in good shape. We have recruits that I think they don't realize that fitness is a part of the job, and that, basically a police law enforcement recruit academy is like boot camp, except you get to go home every night. And, well, it depends on the jurisdiction. Where I'm at, you get to go home every night, which, of course, if you get to go home every night and decompress, it's really not like boot camp. But during that 8-hour day, I mean, it's like a boot camp. You're getting PT, you're doing push-ups, and you're running, and you're getting yelled at, and there's stress, and there's, all sorts of crap. And the classwork is like, college level stuff, not high-end college stuff, but it's, it's your first 2 years of college. That's like the level of the classes you're taking, but they're not terribly difficult. But the PT can be difficult. The fighting can be difficult. The driving, the shooting usually not that hard. The driving is kind of tricky. I struggled with the driving when I was in the academy. But yeah, be in shape and apply. Anything you can do that's going to give you experience in the field is going to help. We take a lot of people from corrections. Corrections is a really tough job. I wouldn't do security so much. Joining the military is a good way to get into law enforcement. Do your 4 years in the military. I know it's a big jump, but law enforcement agencies look favorably upon military service, and that's a real good way to get them. Usually, about a third of our recruits have a background in the military. So I didn't, but we like to see it. Those are our most squared away recruits. So that's what I would recommend. Koreans. Odessia. Korean SEAL guy says limited penetration can be dangerous because it takes too much time. So most of the time it's better to just enter the room. How do you think? I disagree. Limited penetration doesn't take that much more time than running in a room. And I don't think there's a big hurry to run to your death. And bullets are always faster than my feet. So I would rather use bullets from the breach point. A lot of people who support running into rooms believe that surprise is going to help them, like the shock and awe, and is going to help them win the day. And I've done over 600 warrant entries, high risk warrant entries, and where I'm kicking the door and going and clearing the house. And I can tell you, in damn near all of them, by the time I get out of that first room, maybe the first 2 rooms, they know you're there. The fact that every room after that, the person is either waiting for me, surrendered on the ground with their hands behind their head, or looking at the door when I walk in, is a pretty good indicator that they knew I was there. So I'm not surprised. You're not surprising anybody after the first room or two if you're lucky. Are there ways to regain surprise using flashbangs and whatnot? Of course. But you can use a flashbang and still clear from the door. I can surprise somebody from a threshold assault just as easily as I can surprise somebody running in the room. There's just, you're giving up a lot when you run into rooms. It's very dangerous. OODA loop wise, it's not smart because I don't know what's in the room. There could be one guy, there could be four guys, and I can only engage one target at a time. Whereas if I'm using cover at the threshold and pieing the door, I can dictate how much of that room I have to deal with at a time. So I can deal with one threat at a time if I have to. And everybody's like, oh yeah, you can get shot through the wall. Yes. Bad things happen when you enter houses. You can get shot through a wall. You can also have that wall stop the bullets depending on what the wall's made of. Walls provide concealment. Sometimes they provide cover, sometimes they provide concealment, sometimes they provide both. Bad things can happen. Just because a bad thing can happen from a threshold assault does not mean that great things happen all the time when you run in a room. Bad things happen when you run in a room. You can get shot running in a room, then you're down in the room, and then everybody has to come rescue your ass, and we have to keep throwing bodies in that room until you're rescued. And that can be a very bad day. I tell you what, they can shoot through the wall. Sometimes walls stop bullets. I tell you what, walls always stop bullets better than air particles. And if you're running in a room, the only thing stopping those bullets is air particles. You're going to get fucked. There's no concealment in that room once you run in it. At least the wall from the exterior provide you concealment. If you get shot in a room, you're stuck there. If you get outshot outside a room, your buddies next to you can extract you or you can self-extract. It's just always, there's not a hostage in there. You're just not, limited penetration is the way to go. Running in rooms is stupid. People run in rooms because it's successful. But it's successful not because you're running in the room, it's because the people are compliant. They would be compliant regardless of whether you did a threshold assault or ran in the room. My experience, I've had people are compliant for both. One doesn't gain more compliance from doing running in the room than sitting at the threshold. I'm pointing a gun at the guy either way. The difference is I'm either at the threshold using cover and concealment, or I'm right in front of him in his space, in an unknown. I kind of beat the shit out of that one. I'm working on a video on that one. I just haven't really put it all together. Have you also experienced about mission failing? If it is, how do you feel about failing missions? Failure. How does one define failure? Understand that in a SWAT perspective, our acceptable casualty number is 0. Okay. Us and innocents. Having said that, if there is an innocent, if there is a hostage and the hostage is saved and one of us gets wounded or killed, we're going to chalk that one up to an acceptable outcome. It's not ideal. It is acceptable. An unacceptable outcome would be a hostage being killed. An unacceptable outcome would be one of our team members being killed when there is no hostage, just on, a low risk. I don't know, it's not even low risk, but there's no innocent third party there that we're concerned about their safety and one of us gets killed. That's unacceptable. So we have varying degrees of acceptable outcomes. There's ideal. Ideal outcome is nobody gets killed, nobody gets hurt, bad guys go to jail. That's ideal. In and out. That doesn't always happen. That's not always an option. And sometimes that's not on us. Most of the time, the bad guy is going to dictate what happens. I've dealt with a lot of suicidal parties that ultimately, in spite of the negotiator's best efforts, decide to take their life. That's unfortunate. It's a bad day. It is an acceptable outcome. I don't like it, but I would rather that outcome happen than the unacceptable outcome of an innocent getting hurt or one of us getting hurt. trying to save somebody who's suicidal. If somebody's going to commit suicide, there's not much we can do to stop them. We'll do everything we can, but that's why we have negotiators. But sometimes people make bad decisions. So there's what we call varying degrees of acceptable outcome. But failure, we don't do failure. We don't like failure. And fortunately, I don't think I've ever been involved with an operation that I would call a failure. Just less than ideal. What is a good college major that the police would like to see? I think any college degree the police like to see. Any college degree you can get, the law enforcement likes to see. It just shows you can complete something and you have some higher education. Criminal justice is good. That's what I have. I have a degree in criminal justice with a minor in history. So that's good. Not great. If I could do it again, I would do it in business, because business is the degree of life. I don't know. A lot of people get like administrative degrees or psychology degrees or counseling degrees or some bullshit. Now with the way that law enforcement is going, probably law enforcement or probably something in counseling, they'd love that. But any degree is going to really help you, just like any military service. It's not like, well, this guy was in the Army versus the Navy, so we're going to take the Army guy. They don't care. They, just showing that you were in some sort of service is going to help. What is a good college major? Thank you for answers. No problem. Cheers. So if there's no other questions, we're about an hour and 26 minutes. Looking at calling it a night. Thank you, everybody, who jumped in the chat tonight. Got all the stuff talked about I want to talk about. Everybody have a good and happy, not that we celebrate Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is about remembering the fallen and veterans and people who have died fighting in foreign wars and whatnot. So, that's the reason you got the day off, because other people went overseas and fought. I never went overseas and fought. God bless the guys that did. So get out there and do your Murph, do the Murph workout. You do any breakdowns of SWAT videos? I can't. No, there's no way I could do a breakdown of a SWAT video. Not one of ours. One, there's no video. I mean, we have body cameras, but I don't have access to those, nor should I. And no, I'm not going to do a breakdown of that, because I would get in. My department's social media policy is very strict. Most departments have strict social media policies, so you can't do that. It's not going to happen. Other teams videos maybe, but I don't know if you guys would really be interested in seeing that shit. So thanks, Thomas Robinson. I'm gonna try to figure out this streaming stuff. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. YouTube, every time I think I got this stuff figured out, I fuck it up. So, but body cam. Yes, we have body cams, but those body cams belong to the department. That's their video. So I wear a body cam on. Every member of my team wears a body cam on all our operations. Everything's on film. But that doesn't belong to me. And if I would get fired. And I should get fired if I were to use that. Yeah, you can't use that shit. There's rules in the real world. You got to follow the rules. All right. So everybody have a good night. Thanks for watching, and have a good Memorial Day weekend. And take care. Cheers.